So, INS Vikrant, right? We heard, all of us heard about last week, the great naval ship that is made in India. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to talk about making India a global hub for solar DRE manufacturing. And that's how I took the name of Vikrant, because if you can do such large made in India things, then why not DRE solar? And that's the topic for the day. I welcome all of you, the participants who are here today with us, all our members from GOGLA and our partner teams, and special mention of Mr. Jithani from MNRE. All of you all know him, whoever is working in the sector today. Very kind of him to be here with us today. So a very warm welcome to all of you. And we start the proceedings for the second half of the day. The first half, those of you who were here, we were discussing about low voltage, which is a very important topic today for the Indian context. And the other important one, which we are covering now, is the study that GOGLA conducted with the help of Intellecap. And we are going to be presenting the findings of the study. In fact, it's a report launched today. And once the report is launched formally today, then it will be online. And anyone who wants to go through the report can look at the report itself. I think it will be on our website very soon, etc. Just one quick note for everyone that this is a hybrid event. So there will be people, there will be participants also joining online through Zoom platform. So whoever is either a speaker on the panel or coming to the podium to speak, kindly bear that in mind, that we will have to keep the virtual audiences or kind of the online audiences also in mind while we are speaking, so that they are able to hear us. And maybe some of them will be asking questions, which we will pass on to the speakers when the panel starts. So with that, let's start with the formal launch of the report, which looks like a great report that Intellecap has done for GOGLA. And I invite Koen Peters, who is the director for GOGLA. I also invite Ravi Pitti, who is the chair for the India Working Group for GOGLA, and Santosh Singh, who is the managing director with Intellecap, to please come and formally launch the report. Please.
Thank you. Open and see
It's like the birthday present, huh? You have to tear it. And all of you together, please, for the audiences. Thank you, gentlemen. Koen will stay back. So with that opening remarks, I would now welcome Koen to say a few words and set the context for how this work and such work is important for our Indian context, as well as for GOGLA overall as an organization. So over to you, Koen. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Praveen. Welcome in our journey here in India. Thank you very much, Intellecap, for working with us on this this great report. Maybe a first few words about who I am and who GOGLA is. I'm the executive director of GOGLA. I've been that since 2014. GOGLA celebrates its 10th year of existence this year, so we have been around since 2012. We have around 200, upwards of 200 members. Around 2/3 of them are industry members trading in off-grid solar products. And off-grid we define as standalone solar lanterns, solar home systems, the appliances that come with it, and increasingly productive use solar appliances. And we serve that market with around 30 team members, where we have the headquarters in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and representatives here in India, in Mumbai, in Nairobi, and in Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire. And what we do as an industry association is that we speak on behalf of the industry. We advocate on the industry and discuss with governments what kind of enabling environment needs that we have, what kind of financing needs we have. We collect market information, we convene, we stage conversations, we share knowledge. And we have a specific program in India now for about 5 years. In the last 3 years, this has been generously supported by Good Energies. Thank them very much for the work, and this has also helped us to deliver the study that we've just presented. But the topic of the study has been on our mind for a long time, actually from the very beginning that we started in India. India has always been a consistent large market for the off-grid solar industry. It's been a very dynamic environment, of course, with the amazing results that the Indian government has achieved in electrification in the country. The market has kept us on our toes, and we've constantly needed to reinvent the market. And the conversation that we had this morning was around how can, in a situation where most households are being connected to the grid, but quite a few suffer from regrid, what are the solutions that DC appliances, low voltage smart power and appliances can contribute to that market. But we also have been looking at this large home market here in India and wondering why India has not been more of an export leader and a manufacturing hub of off-grid solar products globally. If you look at where we've been in the last 10 years, you can say that the large majority of products, probably more than 95%, are coming out of China, specifically coming out of Shenzhen. And while there's nothing wrong on itself with these products coming out of China, and China has been great in turning out products at a very low cost price with a very consistent quality, and they should be admired for that. The COVID situation and supply chain disruptions that we've seen over the last 2 years have, of course, illustrated not just to us, but to everybody involved in electronic supply chains that we are dangerously dependent on one single supply chain. And as industry, we need to look at diversifying the manufacturing basis. Well, that combines with a trend in India where the Indian government is ever more confidently saying, well, India can step up as a manufacturing hub and have products manufactured in India. And those things coming together are now putting more emphasis to what we've always been thinking, that India is the natural manufacturing place and export leader in our sector. And we haven't really seen that evolving yet so far, but maybe now it will happen. I also think that this is of geopolitical interest. I think India would be a credible partner for many African countries in having discussions and exchange ideas on how you can engage with private sector to deliver public goods, and what are the details of developing the public-private partnership programs to do that in an effective and efficient way. And perhaps India can also be a very good partner for African governments to discuss how to fit this in a climate context and how to make sure that your efforts in working with industry contribute also to what your climate objectives are. So this study, I think, gives us a lot of handles on how to look at that in more depth and more detail, and what are the barriers that are stopping India right now from playing that role, and what can be done to overcome those barriers. And I hope we'll have a very fruitful conversation. This is not the only conversation that we'll have on this, of course. In 5 weeks' time, we'll have a big conference coming up in Kigali, the capital of Rwanda, our biannual flagship event. I'm very pleased that Mr. Jatani is going to represent the Indian government and Ministry of Renewable Energy there. We'll have many other government stakeholders. We also have donor stakeholders, investor stakeholders, manufacturers, distributors, NGOs. But I'm particularly interested in having the conversation there between industry and governments on how we can advance the public-private partnerships that we really need to scale up this industry beyond where it is right now. Which I think is a nice moment to cap off my my opening words and pass on to Mr. Jatani to build this bridge between the industry and the public sector, and to hear from Mr. Jatani his thoughts around manufacturing in India. And while I do this, maybe I can hand over the fourth copy of the report that I have here for you as one of the first recipients of the report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. And I would like to first thank Kun Peters, Executive Director, GOGLA, Praveen. They used to call me every time regarding, of course, for the off-grid systems only, not for the others. So friends, I'm strongly advocate the decentralized use of renewable energy. And presently, I am looking after the decentralized use, like the PM Kusum scheme. That is a very large scheme for solarization of agriculture pumps. Second is the rooftop solar. So again, a big scheme for providing the solar rooftop on the buildings. And third one is the off-grid in the like street lights, study lamps, and solar power packs. So all things related to decentralized are being handled by me. And it's not that that's why I'm advocating it, because I'm strongly in favor of, when we talk about the sustainable development, then I think that use of the localized sources should be there. That is the way of going for the sustainable development. The beauty of renewable energy is, particularly solar, it can be generated anywhere. So you can generate your energy needs through solar and you can utilize it. What we have learned during our implementation of the solar rooftop, the distribution companies are not promoting solar rooftop because they feel that their consumers are going out and their high paying consumers are going out. So if suppose if their low paying consumers, like in the rural area, can be using their own energy, I think in that case the DISCOMs will be very much happy. And here comes the use of the DRE application. If you can generate your own energy, need not to be depend on the grid, then I think the DISCOMs will also be happy. And on that, we are also working on one of the concept that is called the virtual net metering. So where in the rural areas, the consumers of rural area, they don't have the strong enough roof, or they don't have the money sufficient for installation of rooftop. What they can do is they can aggregate their demand, put one solar plant at one place, and maybe at the land owned by panchayats or like that, and then the power that can be supplied through that plant to local area, and they can offset their energy requirement to that. Recently, we have been in discussion with the Ministry of Panchayati Raj. They also want the panchayats to be the self-sustainable. They call it Atmanirbhar Panchayats. They also circulated a concept note on the Atmanirbhar Panchayats. There also they want the village, the whole panchayat to be self-sustainable. I think in April, Honorable Prime Minister has inaugurated one such panchayat. This is at Palli in Jammu, where they have installed 500 kilowatt solar plant, and that is catering to the local needs of the village panchayat. So what I mean to say is generation of local energy would be provide you more sustainable development rather than getting power from a bigger solar plants using large chunk of lands, transmission line, transmission losses will be there. And then you need there the balancing requirement will be more, because when there is a cloud coverage, your power will go down. You need quick ramp up like hydro or gas for their balancing. On the off-grid side, our scheme that was earlier being implemented, having the provision of installation of solar street lights, solar study lamps, solar power packs. In 2010, when the national mission was launched, one of the components of the mission was to also go for the off-grid solutions. During the first phase, we were having even the solar home lighting systems covered, solar lamp, solar agricultural pumps were also covered. When in 2017, the Saubhagya scheme was launched and the Deen Dayal Gram Jyoti Yojana was there. So we stopped our providing support for the solar home lighting systems. And this was covered under Saubhagya scheme. They have, I think, covered more than 4 lakh such home lighting systems in the remote and those areas where the grid cannot reach. So at present, I'll just give some figures what the ministry has from MNRE side has provided for the off-grid. So around 2 million solar home lighting systems have been provided, distributed. More than 1 million solar street lights have been supported. For solar study lamps, it is very useful for the students who are studying. There we are providing a lamp that cost only 400 rupees or so, that is around free of cost. So around 10 million such study lamps have been given. And for solar pumps, around 400,000 pumps have been distributed so far. So if we see the numbers, I think we are the leaders in globe. And we have the manufacturing capabilities available. Not only for these, when we go for the other DRE applications like milk chillers or solar cold storage, solar dryers, our National Institute of Solar Energy has developed certain projects, these products. And they have been deployed in certain pockets of the country and they are working well. So, and we are developing the specification. The purpose of development in the institution is they will develop a quality products. They will have their specification. They will have the testing procedures of these products. So anybody who is purchasing is well aware. Okay, this specification is good. It has been tested. We are also developing testing protocols for such applications, so that whenever we have such kind of application, it should be standardized. The user has a confidence that yes, this product is of quality standard. Different ministries are also implementing different schemes and providing support for the DRE applications, like the Ministry of Rural Development. They are having their own schemes, which is being implemented in the state through rural livelihood missions. And they have number of application being supported. Ministry of Panchayati Raj, they are also supporting, and now they are coming with this concept of Atmanirbhar Panchayat or self-sustainable panchayats. Similarly, the Ministry of Tribal Affairs, they are having certain schemes where they are supporting for the tribal community. Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare, they are supporting like this cold storage or dryers. They are giving subsidy up to 35% or so. Many other applications they are supporting. Similarly is the case of the Department of Fisheries. MSME is supporting through giving the financial support for these mini and micro entrepreneurs. Women and child development, they are also supporting, not directly, maybe indirectly, like they have having the Anganwadi Kendras or and also the Ministry of Health, where they are providing support for the installation of solar power plants for their primary health centers also. So there are certain applications which are giving you the direct job and certain applications which are giving the indirect jobs. We at Ministry is now going forward and to support the DRE livelihood applications. We came with a framework in February this year, wherein what we have seen that these ministries are working in silos, supporting different products, and these products are not standardized. So a need has been felt that we should have standardization of this product, monitor their quality and how they are performing, whether the network of their post installation or post commissioning services are available or not, have the sufficient awareness has been created for these products, because the products are available. What is happening in India, I think we are very good in jugaad. So wherever we find that this, we have to get this work done. So we put something which by which we can do it. So in energy also that happens. In villages, when the people say the light is not there, energy is not there, how we can supplement this? So they use small solar panel, battery, or so that they can work these applications. So these have been developed, but there is a need for their standardization, their quality and other things. So there we thought appropriate that ministry should have a scheme wherein we can aggregate the demand, we can go for the support the research and development, what are the different problems in the field, in the sense of the repair maintenance services are available or not, whether the product is of the quality, whether it is robust enough to be used in the rural area. All these things when we thought of, and then we came out with this framework. And after this framework, now we are working on a bigger scheme wherein we are going to provide support for the DRE applications. Of course, we collaborate with all these ministries which are already supporting to these applications. But in our scheme, we are targeting around 10 billion Indian rupees projects, of which the support will be given for around 50% or so. And the support would be in for different parts, in the sense support could be upfront capital subsidy. Also, when we have taken feedback from the field, people are saying the banks are not financing because they don't know how the product will work. So we are proposing to have the interest subvention kind of thing, or the credit guarantee mechanism, so that the banks finance, subsidies available, cost will go down to the end user. And then also we are not giving them upfront subsidy in a big amount, rather than it would be in certain tranches or in other forms, like small amount through upfront subsidy, small amount through interest subvention, and then credit guarantee. So they have the ownership of the product also. They know that we have to pay for that. So we can work out some revolving kind of fund wherein they pay and then again we can support for the others. So all these things we are thinking of, and maybe the scheme may come out within 2 to 3 months, because in the government it takes some months for the processing and getting the approvals, and thereafter for implementation. So I need all support from your side on the guidelines we are going to prepare for the implementation of this scheme. So maybe I request Praveen and his team to also support us on this preparation of the guidelines, how to implement this on the ground, because there are certain challenges on the implementation of the scheme on ground, and you people are in the field, you know better how the things are moving in the field. So your feedback will be helpful in implementing these schemes. So definitely, when we the launch this report that has been launched, so giving the how the India could be the market leader in the DRE applications. So as I said, already we have so much of the off-grid applications or in the field already deployed, and a number of other applications which has been developed by our National Institute or the other startups and other innovators. These can be further promoted in the other countries, like you said about the Africa or so. There is a role of, I think, then comes the role of ISA, the International Solar Alliance. We can have a collaboration with ISA, and there they can also take up us with the connect with other countries. Maybe we can have a session on DRE during our COP27 as a side event, because I think there will be a India pavilion, and in that pavilion we can think of having a session on the DRE application. Already I have sent a proposal to the Ministry of Environment. If they agree, then we can have such kind of session on that. So I think with these words, I stop here, and I congratulate your team, GOGLA, for having this report out, and hope that their collaboration with the ministry and other countries will take forward all these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jethani, for those informative and very, very useful words, lessons for the industry, and also the support that you are coming out with. I think our members and partners who are present here would have taken note of several things that you mentioned in terms of the schemes that are coming out and how we should be able to take advantage. So public-private or government-private partnership is something that really will push the momentum forward, because as I keep saying from our side, from GOGLA side, that the cause is so large that it is not possible for one stakeholder, whosoever it may be, including the government, to push the momentum alone on it. So it has to be a joint collaborative effort. And thank you so much for spelling out what exactly we need to be looking at in the coming near future. Of course, situations keep changing, but as of now, these are some of the things that are coming out from the government side that we heard of. So now coming to the main story for the session, which is about the report itself. I'll now invite Ankit from the Intellecap team to tell us in brief. So there is a presentation that they have made, and that will give you a complete gist of what the report is all about. So it's like, you know, if you pay attention in the class, then you don't have to really go home and then read your textbook for the exam. It's something like that. So if you really pay attention to what Ankit is saying, then you'll have a gist of the report itself, and you will probably not have to read the entire report back to back. So with that, welcome Ankit, and take us through your report. Thank you so much.
Though we will still expect all of you to read the report. Yeah. So yeah, it was even the title, we have thought, we had a lot of debate internally that what should we put as the title of this report. But we really think that now it's a time where we can think about transforming into a global solar DRE manufacturing hub. And we thought that it might be what we really tried to do as part of this report is looking at the market requirements and readiness, that are we even prepared for that? Some of the findings have said that yes, to a certain extent we are, and there are certain requirements that we need to fulfill as part of the initiatives that we need to take collaboratively as stakeholders, being the government, being the financial institutions, being the entrepreneurs and ecosystem players. So I just quickly say that we're just dividing the slides as looking at objectives first, then opportunities, and then product opportunities, and then challenges, sort of a thing. So what is the objective? The objective which we started this report was to capture the opportunity and challenges in establishing local manufacturing / assembly, to be honest, because if you see from India perspective, we are doing a lot of things we are doing is mostly assembly. We're not manufacturing a lot of components here. We're not manufacturing even the products here. We're mostly targeting towards assembly of these products. So what are the current opportunities and challenges in both manufacturing as well as assembly? What are the actions that requires to maximize the available opportunities, and some of the recommendations that you want to put out that might help us to be in the forefront of manufacturing these DRE products in the near future? So obviously we looked at regulations, we looked at ecosystems, we looked at financial institutions, we looked at opportunities, challenges, and tried to come up with recommendations. When we're actually looking at, we actually looked at certain products, but effectively in deep dive, we looked at solar lanterns, solar home systems, solar street lights, solar pumps, and solar DC fans. We tried to look at other products as well, like induction cooker. We tried to look at mixer grinders and other products as well. And I've reached out to some of you in terms of how you're looking at these products. Are these products even in demand? What is the likelihood of being supported, these products being supported by DRE and things like that? The response was mixed. There was certain understanding that the market is not ready for these products as of now, and nobody is actually doing it on a larger scale. So we limited ourselves to look at these products. We'll largely solar modules and batteries and luminaries we'll try to cover and see what kind of preparedness we have in terms of manufacturing and what we really need to manufacture from that perspective. So what are we actually looking at? We started with looking at the opportunity for manufacturing. And when we started looking at manufacturing, we're looking at demand. And when we look at demand, we look at that in 2021, we talk about 39 million DRE products being used or being sold across the globe, which out of this 34 million around DRE lighting, and then 5 million around products, appliances as we call it. So 39 million in a year, which is actually being hit by the COVID as well to a certain extent. Yes, we are coming back to the normal stance, but even if we talk about 39 million products being sold globally, it's a huge number. So from that perspective, yes, there's still opportunity, and there is opportunity for entrepreneurs to look at this from that perspective. And there are markets in terms of, obviously, India alone has seen the sales of around 800,000 products. So yes, there is a market for India, Asia, Africa, and even Pacific to a certain extent. The GOGLA report itself talks about some of these pockets where there is a sale of products and there's a demand for these products, even after the market has been hit by COVID and now coming back to its own shape. So there's a demand, obviously, but is there an opportunity for manufacturing, right? From that perspective, try to look at, yes, in India, because from the government's perspective, they're talking about Make in India, right? Where they're talking about new processes, infrastructure, and they're focusing on supporting Make in India products to a certain extent, like Praveen mentioned about INS Vikrant. But if we talk about it's USD 257 billion production linked incentives being offered, out of which 3.2 billion is only for solar sector. Yes, that opportunity is for large scale products. Yes, that opportunity is for large scale, like 1 gigawatt kind of installations, which is not being currently supported for DRE. But if you think from that perspective, if we make, or if we collectively talk about demand, if we collectively talk about, yes, there is a need, probably the shift needs to focus from providing support to DRE manufacturing as well, or at least to smaller size panels, smaller size batteries and things like that to a certain extent, even the luminaries to a large extent, right? So yes, there is an opportunity. There is opportunity for gigawatt scale manufacturing of solar cells and modules. There's opportunity for lithium and batteries. And there is a need for development of incentives for informal segments to come in this manufacturing sort of a core as well, where they can also play a prominent role in supporting the manufacturing of DRE products in Indian markets. Second is obviously that China is still the leader in terms of manufacturing, and the freight cost because of in the COVID times has increased 5x from the last from 2019 to 2021. So even we have seen that freight has increased, and that has impacted the cost of product, which has been sort of unintentionally being passed on to the consumers. So that is also impacting demand. So while we're talking about 39 million products being sold in 2021, if we keep on thinking about costs been increasing because of freight or other perspectives, then obviously that has been passed to the consumer, and that will impact the demand. So we have an opportunity to produce it or manufacture it locally, so that we are not increasing the cost of products from that perspective. Obviously, it also is important not just from ensuring that we are supporting the demand in Indian markets, but also then the low cost products can also be exported, and that could also replace Chinese products in that near term in markets across in and around Asia or Indian markets. Obviously, we're just not talking about opportunities, not just for DRE lighting. It's also more than products. So while government has come up with Kusum scheme, Reliance has just mentioned about 400,000 products. They are talking about DRE new policy that has been launched for livelihood programs for livelihood for DRE and things like that. So yes, there is opportunity not just from lighting perspective, but also from solar DRE appliances perspective. And there, obviously, it has an impact on livelihoods, adoption of DC appliances and hub. We have just concluded a session in the morning which talks about low voltage DC appliances. So we are not just focusing on lighting, but also the more opportunity for other products in the Indian markets. And obviously it talks about exports. So like we are talking about India collectively exported value is 330 billion in 2018-19 and 2021-2022 is 400 billion. So obviously we are looking at exporting a lot of other products in Indian markets, manufacturing them locally and exporting them. So why not have DRE also coming as one of the prominent components and, you know, sort of market opportunity for exporting these products, which is 39 million globally, but obviously over the years has a potential to increase from that perspective. So, we tried to look at what are these components and products which we can actually manufacture locally, because obviously we cannot do wafers and ingots because we don't have sort of raw material. We cannot do lithium ion cells because again, there's a lack of opportunity, availability of lithium ion resources. But why can't we have solar cells, lithium ion batteries, charge controllers, BLDC motors, luminaries, etc., which can still be manufactured in Indian markets? And yes, obviously we need some sort of support from the government side. We need some sort of low-cost financing. We need ecosystem support from that perspective. So yes, we cannot manufacture certain components, but we can definitely think about others which are there in the market, which are required from the perspective of DRE. We have done a detailed analysis of that in the report, so we can further read in terms of what are the benefits and requirements from local manufacturing of these components. But yeah, definitely in terms of, again, lanterns, home lighting systems, street lights, water pumps, and fans, we think that we can still do the manufacturing of lanterns, street lights, and water pumps to a certain extent in Indian markets. Solar home system obviously is a long-term SHS demand may increase because currently it is low as compared to what we have been used to seeing it. And obviously BLDC fans is something which we have seen that yes, it's demanded. It's currently and slowly picking up in the Indian markets, but still BLDC fans is the demand is low, and hence the economies of scale is lower from the manufacturing perspective. But definitely we can think about lanterns, street lights, and pumps to a certain extent from the manufacturing perspective. Again, we have given a detailed analysis of why we are choosing these components or these products over other products, and might be useful for you to study from that perspective. But yeah, we feel that we can think from that perspective that we're not just looking at preparing or manufacturing complete product, but also in terms of components and sort of different segments which can be helpful from the manufacturing perspective. So obviously the demand is there, the opportunity is there, there is a support to a certain extent, but there are certain challenges. So what are these challenges? Obviously, one is policy. In the morning session also, it was mentioned that the import duty is being levied on solar cells. So if the import duty is being lower cells, solar cells, it automatically increases the production cost of solar panels in Indian markets. So while we cannot do solar cells manufacturing as we already established in the earlier case, but even if you want to integrate them and do assembly of these solar cells in the Indian market, if you're increasing the solar custom duty, the cost is increasing. Similarly, it talks about incentives. There's no incentives to have local manufacturing capacities, right? There is a production incentives for larger products, larger power plants, but not from the smaller products perspective. So why can't we think about those? So entrepreneurs are saying that we really want to do this, but we are not having enough incentives or enough even demand stimulation activities are there, but the results are not so high for them to start manufacturing them or considering them manufactured in Indian markets. Similarly, financing. And my dear friend Piyush was just discussing outside that financing is something if keep hearing it about for the last 5, 6, 7, whatever years we are doing, right? So financing is definitely a challenge which we all know. Obviously, there are certain programs being tried, there are certain incentives being tried, but still, if you talk to any entrepreneur, affordable financing is the challenge. And we'll hear from Piyush on the panel discussion later on that how we can try to solve some of these challenges from the markets. But yes, this is a pertinent challenge which all of us know and probably concur with. Technology, obviously, there talks about that there is inadequate facilities for vertical integration. So yes, we are not doing integration across the value chain. Again, we have some components being made, but we are not having enough opportunities or enough R&D facilities to actually ensure that we understand the requirements, we are doing it, manufacturing it to the export standards, and we are not being able to integrate all the components in a sort of a manner that it can allow us to meet the demands at a cost-effective manner in the Indian markets. At the same time, we've not been able to export the markets, which are the standards which are expected or supported in the outside markets. So something which you need to think about the technology upgradation from our side, and entrepreneurs are trying to do that. Some entrepreneurs are doing effective products in the Indian markets, but obviously this has to meet the standards, and integrations from that perspective are still missing from the entrepreneur's perspective. And obviously capacity building, that we don't have quality. I talked about quality standard, but at the same time, we don't have skilled manpower who can make these products locally. We have been to field, Patrick, we were discussing about that how people are doing Jugaad. Even Jirhani sir was mentioning about Jugaad. So we are just talking about Jugaad to a certain extent. We spoke to different stakeholders, and government has the same perspective that the capacity or the skills to manufacture these products on a larger level still needs to be developed from a certain perspective, and certain requirements are there. So what are we recommending as part of the report? Again, it's just a snapshot of the report, but we have suggested different solutions, and we try to look at from the impact and the feasibility perspective. When we talk about impact is from the perspective of the impact on the market, the impact on the society, and impact on the number of stakeholders that it involves into. In terms of, if it's impacting entrepreneurs, if it's impacting the consumers, and who is it actually impacting to. So we have a metrics towards measuring the impact. And then there's a feasibility, that how feasible it is to implement. We can say that, for example, one of our recommendations is develop solar economic zones, like we have SEZs. So that we can have incentives for manufacturers to set up their shops there, and to have different direct incentives for manufacturers to set up local shops in the solar economic zones. Its feasibility is lower, because then it has to go from certain channels. The government has to endorse it. There is a financing that has to be provided. Financial institutions to come together. The public-private partnership, that whole Praveen was talking about, right, needs to come in to make something like SEZ work around that. So the feasibility is lower, though the impact might be higher, because then you have a lot of incentives to start local manufacturing in those local economic zones that we are planning to create. So we have just tried to map it out from the impact versus feasibility stuff. And we really think that some of you, in terms of associations, government, financial institutions, can think of this and say that, hey, probably, promote South-South cooperation is a low-hanging fruit, and we can think about starting from there, so that we can all interact. We can understand the requirements from the export quality standards. We can understand the requirement in Africa and other regions in Asia, and have this corridor start opening, so that we can understand that if we can really support these markets from local manufacturing perspective. So probably some of these low-hanging fruits, we can all come together and discuss at probably a opportune time, 2 to 3 months, 4 months down the line, where we are actually thinking about implementing some of these solutions to take a step towards local manufacturing of DRE in India. So yes, we need to have a component manufacturing capacity. We have to have informal manufacturing entrepreneurs being built into the formal sector. So somehow we can have to ensure a mechanism where we can also recognize the informal sector, provide them with the standards, provide them with the support in terms of financing, and bring up them to the speed in terms of they can start contributing majorly in the local manufacturing of these products, and obviously have skill enhancement programs for not just doing a Jugaad kind of technology, but effective manufacturing of these products in the Indian markets. We should have a demand stimulation and solar-based consumer durables demand, because the AC/DC appliances you're talking about, they still not have those demand base that we really expect them to have. So we are not have enough programs to support or promote DC appliances in the Indian markets. So probably we can think about having demand stimulation for the DC appliances, and then probably that could be one of the the manufacturing bus that we want to carry, because probably we have lost in terms of solar panels to a certain extent to Chinese markets, but can we think about having DRE appliances being our sort of sword in the arm, and then we can start thinking about how we can take that route where we can be the front runners in manufacturing of DRE appliances over DRE products. Obviously financing, so we can talk about subsidize or provide low-cost line of credit. But Jirhani was talking about revolving funds and those kind of structures, where we can actually think about how we can have solar DRE manufacturing, battery manufacturing, manufacturing of other components into climate finance, where we have seen climate finance being flowing for solar plants. We have seen climate finance being flowing for EV manufacturing. Can we have the climate finance flowing for DRE appliances manufacturing as well? Obviously, we have to have export-oriented recommendation, where we have to tap the opportunities of South-South cooperation, study tools, knowledge tools, and all those things, which are, again, as I said, low-hanging fruits, where we can start understanding the demand and understanding the requirements, and start designing products which are applicable or accepted in these foreign markets. And at the rest, I would have loved if Jatani ji would have been here with us for 10 more minutes, because we really want him to understand that if we can have these solar economic zones, if we can have these incentives, one of the morning sessions talked about GST, right? The GST is impacting the product's demand and uptake in the Indian markets. So even if we can think about providing tax incentives for manufacturing these products to entrepreneurs, which can definitely be passed on to further the consumers, or we can have land at concession rates so that we don't have lower down the cost of manufacturing, which can again be passed on to the consumers. So we really need to think about how we can have more policies. Yes, there are certain initiatives which Jatani sir talk about, but definitely we need to think about having certain of these things where tax incentives, tax support, or land of concessional rates, something which can lower down directly the cost of manufacturing, which can then be passed on to the consumers from that perspective. So as we was trying to highlight, these are just we have tried to back all of our recommendations, all of our findings with proper analysis and numbers. So we will encourage all of you to read the reports. And if you feel otherwise, we are happy to have conversations with you to understand how we can strengthen this market more from the local manufacturing perspective, because that's something which I think GOGLA is passionately taking up, and we should definitely we just don't want this as another report. We really want that India understands the importance of local manufacturing and take some of the initiatives to support local manufacturing in Indian markets, not just for Indian products, but also for exporting it globally. So thank you so much. We have a poll. So we have a poll where we would like to have some of the opinions from you all to understand some of these products, some of these discussions that we're having today. So can we still have this, my presentation? So there is a slido.com with the code as #MakeInIndia. I know there are some internet challenges, but if any of you can have it, it might be useful. But we definitely want our online guests to join this slido.com and have using a code #MakeInIndia, so that we can have the poll here. I'll just put a poll questions here, and for the people in the room, we can have a show of hands or something that to understand what's your sentiments around the question that we want to ask. So the question is India poised to become a major manufacturing DRE hub? What do you think? Given the current scenario, given the current situation, are we even there in terms of becoming a major DRE manufacturing hub? Do you agree? Do you not agree? Do you partially agree, or you completely disagree? This is on slido.com, #MakeInIndia. Yeah. So people in the room probably can voice the opinion. Do you agree? How many of you agree that we are at the poised to become a major manufacturing DRE hub? Do we agree? Do we have people in the room who agrees to that sentiment? Yeah. So at least I could say at least 60% of us are saying in the room that we are there in the poised to become a DRE manufacturing hub. So somehow we can add that to that number, or anyone has a different view. Someone is thinking about partially agreeing, because there is another poll coming in that partially agrees what a lot of the people feel. So any suggestion in the audience in terms of why do you think that we're still at a partial agreement stage and not the fully agreement stage?
Yeah, I partially agree.
Yeah, as you also mentioned, there is that government initiatives involved in it, like as if I talk about solar panels, so now not only the duty is impacting, the cost of the panel, but, like you have to have, for a local manufacturing, that you have to have, like BIS certificate, for each and every panel, whether it is 10 watt or 200 watt or 500 watt. And that is too costly, like for a local manufacturer, and this impact the cost also. So these are the few things, some government policies and initiatives are required to do that, which we don't see as of now.
Sure. So yeah, I think most of you have the comments over there and have sentiments over it. But yeah, I think we can now move to the next segment, which is a panel discussion. So I would like to invite Mr. Santosh Singh, Managing Director, Intellecap, who is the moderator of the session, to come and have panelists, invite the panelists for the session.
Thank you, Ankit. And thank you, Mr. Kuhn and Praveen and the GOGLA team for making us part of this report. I think Ankit had been chasing most of you to get the inputs. Hopefully, we have done justice to getting those inputs and converting into some insights that help the sector. This was a very, very kind of tight timeline in a not so conducive environment. We were struggling with several onsets of on and off COVID and other things. But I think we're looking at a report that would be surely helpful for those who are trying to understand how we can scale up solar manufacturing in India. Before I go to the panel, I have a very esteemed panel that will talk to that. I think I just want to recall in 2008-9, I was part of a report. That report was named Power to the People, and that was the first estimate of DRE sector potential in Asia. We estimated that what could be the market potential for DRE sector if you scale it up, and we profiled some companies. One of the companies profiled in that was Delight. Second was Selco. Greenlight Planet was one. I'm just talking about the lighting sector. 15 years, 14 years later, all the three companies have become really, really kind of a big name in that space. At that point of time, when I was presenting, and I was, you can sense 15 years back, I was not very sure of my own recommendation whether they will work or not, but we took the chance. And many people say that, boss, the kind of situation it is, the sector is very difficult to grow that size, what you're projecting. We have beaten our own assumptions. We have done better than that. So this report where GOGLA is highlighting the potential of India as a DRE solar manufacturing hub is at the same juncture. We don't know what we can do. So I think I was looking at the poll result, and I was looking from a perspective that I think what you said was conditionally agree rather than saying partially agree. It was more of a conditionally I'm agreeing if these things happen, we can be the thing. So I think that's a big a kind of thing to say that if you meet those requirements, we would be able to kind of achieve the goal of become a solar DRE manufacturing hub. So with that, I think I have a panel full of practical insights and industry exposure and experience that would give us some good insight on the report as well as what we are talking about. I think there were a number of references about the financing, about the ecosystem needs, about the quality, and all of these things we're discussing on this panel in the context of how all of these need to be taken care of to make it a manufacturing hub. I would urge my panel members to come here, and I will invite them one by one, and I'm just going to invite them by name and the company. I think most of the people who are in this room know these people, so I'm not going to read the bios. So I'm waiting for Mr. Tripathi, who would be joining later, but let me invite Mr. Piyush Mathur from Odyssey. Piyush. Mr. Alexander from ISA. We have Mr. Salesh Gupta from Delight. Mr. Mukul Kumar from Global, and my dear friend Nema from Dharma Life, please. So I will wait for Mr. Tripathi to come, but I think I'll start the proceedings. And if Mr. Tripathi, if somebody can just track off, I think he said that he's on way. You might have to just look at that. So, I would join you. I think it's better I join there and speak from there. But just to set a context for this panel, I think we have around 45 minutes. And Ankit would have a couple of more poll questions inputting us. But the key is that I think we would have possibly 2 rounds of discussion. And I have questions which are primarily factoring in the work you are doing in this space and using your perspective to kind of talk about certain issues that we think are critical for scaling up DRE solar manufacturing in India. Okay, so I'll join you there, and then I'll take liberty to kind of change slightly the order because Dr. Tripathi is not there. So I'll kind of so. can you help me with the name tag in case if you are, yeah, perfect. So what I'm going to do that, I think I wanted to have, sorry. What I wanted to do, I was planning to start with Mr. Tripathi to get a larger perspective of the policy landscape that is there for scaling up, but I think I'll park that. But let me kind of go to enterprises who are in this space and understand from them, because they are one of the key practitioners in this space, and understand their perspective on how we can scale up solar manufacturing in India. So I have two enterprises with me, Delight and Glow World. So I'll start with Mr. Mukul. Sir, just to give you a kind of starting question, as an enterprise, I want to understand, and please share your insight with the larger team, larger group and online audience. Your take on the product sell volume, the economics, the profit margins, and the way the DRE space is emerging, especially in the Indian context. And what are the critical factors that you see, that we need to factor in when we talk about scaling up manufacturing in India? So I'm asking you to talk about, as a enterprise, what are the kind of economics involved around DRE sector, and then talk about that if we have to promote manufacturing in this space, what are the key things we need to do? Because you are one of the key players who are procuring and selling. So start with that. And I will kind of extend this question to my Delight colleague to talk about that same question, but look at the global context. You are a global player. You look at the multiple things. So what it would take to kind of start sourcing from India, or what is your intake and saying that, hey, I have been procuring from multiple countries. What is the aha moment to say, okay, now I'll start procuring from India? Because that is the key thing to see how we can make India as a manufacturing hub. So first, Mr. Mukul, and then I'll come to Mr. Salis.
Sure. Thank you, Santoshi. So we manufacture solar lights for the last 6 years. So let me take you to the customers who we are selling to in the rural areas. They are extremely cost conscious. They will not pay you more than what they think is the right price for this. Number one. Number two is that unless you provide financing to them, they are not going to buy your product. None of them will buy our product if we don't sell it through some kind of financing scheme. So we sell through microfinance. We sell to microfinance and they provide financing, and then further it gets sold to the consumers, end users. Then the general that becomes the core component, that you have MRP, selling price is fixed. Now come at the cost pressure when you are manufacturing. Lot of cost, which is the raw material manufacturing, which you used for your manufacturing, is not in your control. It's driven by multiple factors, which are, be it dollar versus rupee, be it the duty of the components. We need batteries. Nobody is manufacturing cells in the country. You need solar cells to get solar panels. Nobody is manufacturing solar cells here. Everybody is dependent on the duty structure and the dollar arbitrage. Yeah. So it's not in your control, but you have to sell at the fixed price. So automatically there is a huge pressure on the margin. And then various kinds of unknowns come and hit you as a cost. In 16-17, what we realized that we did an estimation that these are the cost. This is how the margin would be panning out, but it didn't work out. There were the big X was a surprise factor. That X is only increasing despite our experience is increasing, irrespective of that. So that is number two, that no control over the cost, and there are unknown costs. The third thing is that as a manufacturer in India, we used to collect 5% GST. And whatever we're buying, components, they were at 18%. Be it battery, except solar panel, everything ultimately has gone to 18%. Now only solar panel has also moved from 5 to 12%, but that very lately. So I have a huge inverted duty structure issue. My money, whatever I sell, it goes to Sarkar more than what it comes to us. More number of appliances we sell, more money goes to Sarkar rather than us. Because when we sell to microfinance, they ask you for facilitation fee. On facilitation fee, they charge you GST, which is huge, 18%. Sorry, service charges, yeah, service tax. And then on the complete RM, raw material, be it from packaging to electronic components or metal box or solar panel or battery cells, tube lights, plastics, everything, on everything you are paying 18% least. Now, the fourth thing is that, so one is the cost consciousness, then was the cost unknowns. The third thing is this inverted duty structure. And then we come to the general, the manpower cost, yeah, or the rental costs, or the transportation costs. Everything has gone through the roof, especially post-COVID. If anybody says that they know and they can forecast and they can estimate, I mean, I would like to learn from them. It's so difficult. But you have to survive in such conditions. So apart from that, I'll tell you on the opportunity, Santoshji. We got a study done by C Kinetics on the because I was very keen to replicate, to sell our renewable energy products to those cart vendors. There are estimated 10 crore cart vendors in this country. And most of them, and we had categorized them in various kinds of cart vendors. So we did a pilot. They all loved our product. They pay 20,000 to 30,000 rupees for 2 years because our product carries 2 years warranty. So I'm saying in 2 years, they pay 21,000 to 30,000 rupees to the local Bahubalis on a daily basis. 30 rupees se 50 rupees, $30 to $50 they pay every day for lighting, every day. Now assume that they work for 300 days a year, and 2 years is 600 days. So $40, $30 is 18,000, $50 is 30,000. They are paying, they don't know that problem, that how much are they paying on that aspect. We went and did some small pilot. We got people in the room, we fed them breakfast and all, and asked them ki ye light kaisa hai? They said bahut badhiya hai, but aap roz humse paisa lijiye. You need to take money from us every day. We cannot give you full cost. It's a huge opportunity, but it's so difficult to get the to sell it without finance and without having a partner who goes and collect on a daily basis.
So
thank you.
So just adding one more question, I think one of the critical thing that we are trying to understand, that if you have to procure products, what challenge you face in procuring from India, and what are the regions that you prefer to import? Because if we know the challenges, then we are able to kind of get the insights that we need to kind of address. I understand the demand drivers, the constraints, the challenges that we're talking about. I think the price sensitive market and the challenges of the innovation in financing. It's not only about financing, it's the innovation in financing. I want to pay daily rather than I want to pay monthly. So your take on why you prefer to import or other way? what are the kind of procurement challenges that you see if you are looking at this kind of market? Are you able to solve this kind of market with a homegrown solution, and would that be a kind of beneficial for you in as an Indian player in DRE?
I wish I would not have started manufacturing in India, and I would have been an importer from day one. See, the challenges in local sourcing are of various kinds. Because you're a small company, you buy from MSMEs. They have their own challenges, similar challenges with any MSME company is facing, the capital or the labor, or they are dependent on, like, my carton supplier is manufactured on the paper, my wire supplier is dependent on the copper price dynamics, and also the credit and non-credit things, they are smaller, they don't have big pocket size. So there are too many surprises when you source in India, any kind of components. Now, so let me explain. So we buy solar panel. Solar panel we buy from a very reputed and a big company, who further, they are importing from outside. But we have been we buy from Subra, Galo Energy, and Gotham Solar since inception. We have a relationship. Battery pack, there are lots of local, those who were working in a medium-sized company or a big company. They have started, they left their job and they started importing solar cells. And lots of them, they came to us when we were buying from big companies like Coslight, or those general managers have left and they have started importing solar cells, and they ask, "Ki aapka program kya hai? What is your software? We will make PCB according to that, and then we will supply you." We also thought that it's a good idea. It's a win-win. So they import solar cells. They they shrink wrap them and they put the PCM and they supply it to us, right? So where are they dependent on? They are dependent on the prices driven by China. Now we tell them that keep 10,000, secure price for 20,000 cells for us. They will not give you. They'll say we cannot, because we are not getting assurances from our importers. We buy electronic components. 47 electronic components, different kinds of resistors and capacitors, which we buy to make one PCB. Total 93 items we buy to make one solar home lighting. Right? That was there is no manufacturer here. Nothing gets manufactured in India. So you are largely dependent on a trader. There are 3 traders who we have built a relationship very consciously. So there are serious issues of duplication or wrong components being given. So they'll this industry is known for this duplication. So getting the original component, you have to build relationship, you have to pay premium, you have to, ultimately they also import. So my panel manufacturer is importing, my battery is getting imported, my all electronic components are being imported. The metal box in which we make the charge controller, that is largely driven by the tin plate and steel industry. So that cost is somehow more local and under control, but the percentage is very low.
So Mukulji, just to kind of summarize what you said, I think what we're talking about, that while we are focusing on DRE manufacturing hub as a dream or as a kind of distant future that we can achieve, we need to factor in the different pieces that we are getting in and look at the supply chain of things, and then we say
value chain of the
entire
each
thing.
and every subsets of RMs.
Perfect. So we need to kind of more nuance in our kind of ambitions, and we say solve the problem of supply chain, solve the component-wise problems, and then see if I have to kind of phrase it in a very simple way, 80% of the components would be homemade in say 5 years, 60% in 4 years. So that kind of segue, rather than saying that we are manufacturing at home, so that you can improve the economics, you can improve the home component part. So I'll come back to that, but
certainly
jumping on to my next
Thank
panelist, Saleji, Delight has been doing business in multiple countries, and the region I was asking Mukulji to talk about, that he covered some of the challenges of this particular business. You have the similar kind of business. I want you to focus on, when you think of exporting, what are the key export markets? And what are the consideration you have for importing? And you those insight to tell us like how we can benefit from that and building India as a kind of manufacturing hub, because ultimately we'll rely on the people who are buying from here and supplying globally, right? So over to you. I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'll just take maybe 30 seconds to just talk about work which D-Light has done so far globally. And so we couple of years back celebrated transforming 100 million lives, and we are now at 129 million lives being transformed globally. So what does that mean in terms of cost savings for the people who have used these lights? So in Indian currency, it converts to almost 33,000 crore rupees of energy expenses being saved by those households. Okay. In India, we have transformed around 50 million plus lives here. What does that mean for Indian consumer? It means around 14,000 crore rupees being saved for Indian consumer. Okay. This is almost like 10 million lights in India. They are at an average selling price of somewhere like 900,000 rupees. It boils down to like 55 paisa per day cost of usage for 5 years if the products are being used. Okay, that's how it converts into, and that's the level of cost efficiency our consumers are really expecting from our products, 55 paisa or even lower. So that's based on the current one. If I look at, let's say, the earlier 8 years, 9 years, it would be just like 25 paisa per day. Okay. Now, all these products came from China. Okay. 15 years back when D-Light started its journey, we had 1 million people living without electricity in the world, another billion being impacted by unreliable supply of electricity. Today, that number has come down to 800 million people and another billion still continuing because the population is also growing. So the markets remain relevant for us. Okay. Needs in India has changed drastically. We all have experienced seamless electricity, what we are seeing right now in rural areas. So our expectations are much, much different from what they were like 10 years back. So our product offerings have also changed in India. We have moved on. While we are still continuing to make solar lanterns, we are importing them from China. We are developing them in India now. And I see that there is no reason why that demand is going to probably scale down drastically. It will still continue to remain relevant. The more relevant products will be energy generation, larger systems for SMEs, for MSMEs, for commercial establishments, for larger power consumption industrial organizations. So they will remain relevant. However, for the global markets, as you asked me, D-Light has experienced huge supply chain disruptions in the last 2 years from China. In India, we have seen our margins dropping by a good 20-25% just because of the duty structures, import duties and the GSTs here. Okay. Shipment rates have gone up by around 5 times as Ankit had just shown. So there is no other way apart from making in India. The opportunity available to DRE manufacturing in India, let me give you an example. So Mr. Jethani talked about a 60 billion INR opportunity in agri industries. 41% of our population, they still derive their livelihood from agriculture products. Another 90 million will be added. 90 million workforce will be added by 2030 to the non-agricultural workforce in the next 8 years. Okay. Talk about healthcare. India has got thousands and thousands. I don't have the exact number, but I'm remembering from one of my earlier discussions. 26% of the sub-health centers, they are still without electricity. Okay. If I talk about Government of India's mandate, they are saying by 2030, 50% of our energy must be met by non-fossil fuel based energy generation. So there is no other way apart from developing manufacturing in India. And Government of India is very clear. They have increased the import duties from China. They don't want to import from China. So let's be very clear. There is no other way. D-Light as an organization, we have been really focused on developing our portfolio of products sourced from India. made for Indian consumers to begin with, because India is also a barometer for what kind of things are going to come into the rest of the developing world, including Africa, the market which is most relevant for a company like Delight. So we are definitely looking at exporting from India, and we are setting up our own export team. Of course, this requires a strong procurement team. So as an organization, we are very, very clear, whatever may be the cost here, we'll have to survive, and we have to generate that capability in our own organization. To just give you the figures for that, we were 8% products were being sourced, mainly larger panels were sourced from India in 2020 before COVID. We are now selling 78% of the products in India which are procured from India, sourced from India. So as organization like Delight or other small organizations which might be in energy space, they have to procure only from India, and they have to develop that capability. And whether we like it or not, there would always be competition from the bigger players. Government would be supporting the larger power generation organizations, but small and medium-sized enterprises will also grow. And currently, as Mukul mentioned, we are also working with only SMEs as far as our local sourcing is concerned. There are a few bigger ones also, but then they remain equally relevant. So that's where we are, and we are really, really excited. Our Africa team is really excited, and they're looking forward to how India is going to provide them for the products they currently need. So for example, they are buying home systems, televisions, mobiles from China, okay, which are currently not being manufactured in India, but they are expecting, because they are also experiencing the same pain which we have experienced. So definitely, I am very, very optimistic about India emerging as a strong DRE manufacturing based on the India potential, and of course the global potential which is available. Yeah.
So if I have to force you to give one specific challenge that you see, because 8% to 78%, a huge jump, and that is only in the category that you are kind of right now serving. If you look at the new products category that are emerging, then you are talking about a huge market emerging. So as a procurer of products from India, and you are saying that if this experience has to go to the next level, what are the 2-3 things that you want to change the way Indian manufacturing of DRE is happening? Is there something that you thought of that, okay, I have shifted procuring from this to this location while I am procuring more, but there are some trade-offs. How can we make the India DRE scale-ups, dream much more kind of, pleasant for everyone? It's not a compromise that, okay, the global market has changed, that's why we are here. Let's make that India dream is kind of India the preferred destination for procurement, not the destination that emerged out of the geopolitical and the kind of global risk scenarios.
Sure. So there are essentially 2 things which I am really concerned about when we are developing our India procurement capability. One is the quality of products. Okay, China has been manufacturing in huge volumes. So they had mastered the art of providing quality products at much cheaper prices. So I think India is still struggling with that, and there are not too many manufacturers who can match that quality. And it takes us a while to really settle down on one supplier. So we must focus on quality. And as we as Indians, or maybe all the manufacturers, we should really learn our lessons really well, that how we can match those quality standards for the rest of the world, and even for Indian buyers who are erstwhile importing from China. That's one. The second one challenge is definitely the cost of manufacturing in India. It is higher than China at this point of time. Plus, there are no great credits available from the various banking industry. So those costing and credit challenges, they continue. And see, for us also, when we buy our products or we get them manufactured, we are also struggling with our working capital management, whereas that's not the case so much there in China. I think the cost of production is much lower from China.
Perfect. That's very succinct. So, Ankit, we have some poll question coming up. The way I'm going to do that, we heard about the enterprise challenges in procuring and what they are facing in the manufacturing hub. I will get Nima to talk about the challenges from the consumer side of the new segments emerging. I think DRE is like multi-segment sector. One is that where the product demands have been established. The products are already matured. It's like commoditized. People are buying, they know what they're buying. And then there are new breed of products that are coming. So DRE powered fans, televisions, etc., which are kind of in a very different stage of product growth. So Nima will speak about in Thermalife experiences of taking these products to the consumer. And since they are the one who buy from likes of Delight and Glow World and others, and sell it through the microfinance institution to the thing, I want to hear that. And this will capture the practitioner's part of the manufacturing to distribution to the consumer. And then I'll come back to Piyush and Alex to talk about the ecosystem challenges that we need to solve. So Nima, are we going to have the questions on the screen or after Nima? So Nima, over to you, and then we'll have a poll question, and then we get back to Piyush and then to Alexander. Over to you, Nima.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Nima, and here I represent Thermalife. Thermalife is a social enterprise which works with communities. And DRE has always been part of our offering because we are committed to clean energy, right? So if you look at as a part of our clean energy strategy, addressing the components of clean energy and indoor air pollution, we are trying to do it with our set of entrepreneurs. We have around 14,000 women entrepreneurs. That's how we are also ensuring women participation. In fact, I was reading one of the article, Praveen, which you wrote, wherein you wrote that the participation of women in this sector, in this space is very less. And that's where we are also trying to address the participation of women, right? And therefore we have this whole force of 14,000 women entrepreneurs who are, we are utilizing for the use of DRE products, promotion of the DRE products. If you see as an organization, there are two kinds of products, two segments of products that we generally offer. That is, one is household use products and the commercial use products, right? So in the household use products, we have seen, all of us have seen the small lanterns that have been in use for a very long time. And we have partners like Delight and Greenlight from who we source. So we have seen that this space, when we work with the communities, there is a shift in terms of general used products to a more focused used product. For example, lights for reading, light for agriculture users. In fact, one of your lights are very much utilized for, that's known as Kisan Torch, right? Which is used by specifically, agriculturists when they go to the field, and they look for this long beam light to be able to see very far. Right. Next shift that we have seen is definitely from low, up in the, upping the game in the consumption of, high lumen products. So initially we had more of 50 lumen kind of a product, which was kind of dominating. But now if you look at, we are looking at 150, 170 kind of a lumen product. So there is a shift in the kind of products that is in demand. And that's one kind of shift that we look into. Right. The other thing in the commercial space, the new products that we are kind of putting in offering are like solar fans, which we use, but then there are, issues of like right price point is something that we generally face. And then the other thing, there are other products that we have been commercial use. We are looking at as dryers, and then we are looking at, which are generally utilized by groups, because that's where it comes from. Then solar lighting. One of the issues that we face while we're looking at these products to put in our portfolio is we don't have standardized, quality systems that we can look up to. And that is the reason for every time that we look into the product, we had to look at, product by product, each of these, as case by case, rather than looking up to a one standardized practice. Which and I wish we could have something like which IFC had a certified, certification in case of the solar light, which, Praveen, you are also part of. So if these are the things given to us, I think it'll be great. And that will help us in scaling up, and also community being able to sell these products, all our people, women being able to contribute to the, the promotion and of the DRE products. You, I think, also asked about the MFI space, right?
Yes.
You see, MFI space is largely, when we see them, they have always supported the traditional products like solar lanterns, right? And they have been doing so even now, though the percentages have been reduced. But we see if they see a clear ROI, in these cases, I'm sure if there's ROI positive for themselves and for the customers, they'll be able to adopt these products also. So just to mention here, Santosh, we have been doing these, when we're looking at all these use cases of the various other products, which we are now implementing, solar dryers, and there are a couple of these products which have positive ROI, that we have looked into, and we have these. We're happy to share this with more one-on-one basis, people who want to know about it. Right, and these are the if we really, there is a ROI that we can share it with the clear ROI line with these MFIs. I'm sure there'll be a full pull from their side, and they'll be able to take this as a livelihood product in their portfolio and support.
Thank you, Nima. I think before I switch to the questions, I think the 2 points which clearly came.
Yeah.
One is on the manufacturing and the challenges about importing and all this thing. The second, what I'm hearing is that Dharma Life or many institutions like Dharma Life, who are the last mile connect to the consumer, they're a good barometer of the emerging demands and the new categories emerging, which would in future become the mainstream, right? So, I have been tracking these companies, and we have seen the initial challenges of the solar light, being a very, very difficult to sell. Those days have kind of gone. So as we see the demand for new type of appliances, new type of aspirations of the household, we see a different need of financing with different need of kind of ecosystem. I think that was a great example. I think GOGLA should be looking at how you make the consumer have trust in some of the new kind of category that are emerging. So that's one big line. Second is that how we can build the capacity of financial institutions to start financing the new kind of products, because it takes some amount of time from emergence of the product to have a financing available for them. So how we can expedite that process, that now the product has come, the demand is established. Is there a new way of financing that? Can we work with the financiers to do that? So with this, I think, Ankit, if you can put the question, and then I'll jump back to Piyush, and yeah. Can you switch the...
So again, the same thing, you have to go to styro.com, #Make in India. Yeah, the same thing.
Let's see what the question is.
Yeah. So the question is, what is a primary challenge hampering the growth of DRE manufacturing sector? So while we discussed, or we understood that there is a challenge, and we are probably thinking about it, need to think about it. But if you talk about the primary challenge, is it unavailability of raw material? Is it low cost financing? Is it incentives from the government side? Is it lack of skilled labor R&D? Or if you feel that no, none of this, but there's something else which is currently hampering it, so you can also choose other. And if you are joining online, please put in the chat box, what do you think from the other? When you choose other, what do you mean by other? And if you're here, we can discuss about what do you think is the other challenge, which is not been captured here.
So one of the very few questions where availability of finance comes second.
Yeah.
I've done many sector scans, and the finance comes to the top challenge. Here it's coming second, so good. It shows about the, but it's catching up. We might catch up. That's what I'm saying. Whoever this is a pretty. In the room, what do you think is the biggest challenge? People who believe that availability of raw material or unavailability of raw material is the challenge. How many of us will believe that's a major challenge? Is that a major challenge in DRE's manufacturing? You can just raise your hand. I think how many of you believe that availability of raw material is challenge? It's increasing. You believe that? If you say so.
Yeah, well, I don't think there is any component manufacturing in India,
Yes.
frankly. So yes, we do a lot of assembly, but we're not manufacturing wafers. We can assemble panels, but to that extent, you are still reliant on a global supply chain.
Yeah. So Ankit, keep the poll on, and I'm jumping to the new question, and then we can collect the data. But I think the two things that is emerging, one is that the unique nature of this challenge, where you are focusing on raw material availability, and second is the financing. These are the two top challenges. So Piyush, I think it's a good segue to the question I'm going to ask you. So one part is, you heard about finance comes as a challenge at multiple level in the value chain, for the enterprises, for the households, for the manufacturers. Low cost finance, the buzzword. How do you think that low cost finance can be enabled for this sector to address some of the challenges that DRE enterprises are facing. So that's one, because you have done a lot of work in the financing. That's the one part I want you to focus. Also, I think, from a perspective of financial institutions, how it can be done. So not only for enterprise, but financial institutions are not necessarily saying that we don't provide low-cost finance, but they're unable to provide low-cost finance, right? That's the key word. They're unable to provide. So that's the one, part of, kind of response that I want to get from you. But also, considering your new role that you have been leading at Odyssey, you are doing a lot of work in aggregated procurement platforms, and sometimes the aggregation or a smooth procurement itself changes the economics of the entire value chain. Consumer gets the cost benefit, and manufacturers gets a bulk order. So if you can give me that, if we have to enable DRE manufacturing at a scale in India, role of financing, and other things that we can do which are non-financial innovations in the procurement, this kind of platform that you're talking about. So over to you.
Sure. So you're asking me to wear two hats, one as a practitioner from my SIMPA time, and second as an ecosystem enabling platform, which
I'm asking you to just wear one hat, which is how to provide solar energy to most of the people.
Yes, but let me start with your financing question first. So let's go back to the fundamentals of what are the barriers. If you speak to a financier, why would they not lend you money? So the first problem is access. The biggest banks don't always know who the practitioners are, who actually needs money. Yes, we say in our sort of small DRE ecosystem that, we are trying with different institutions, but actually the reality is that we are so insignificant and small for the largest institutions that they don't even know us. So for the first problem that we have to address is access. We have to approach them. We have to make them aware of DRE as a sector, its peculiarities, and then engage them in understanding our sector. The second is aggregation. Even when we have engaged them and started discussing about our sector with them, what we very quickly realize is that we don't actually have enough scale in our businesses to engage them on a transaction. They're engaged on a sector. They mean to understand what the sector is and whether that presents a lending opportunity for them, but they just don't see enough scale to commit to a transaction. So aggregation is the second issue. And the third issue then is data. That, okay, I have met you, I understand your sector, I'm starting to educate myself on your sector. You are showing me an aggregated portfolio now of either mini grids or solar home systems. So yeah, this is sort of above my transaction size threshold and I can start to look at it. But okay, how do I get my head around it? Where is the data? And the third problem is that there is no data on the sector. So we can't inspire confidence amongst lenders. We cannot help them de-risk their own investment or facilitate their due diligence. So those are the three barriers. I think we have to, as a sector, creatively think about how do we knock down all those barriers. So for example, in terms of educating or informing the biggest lenders about this sector, there have been very well-meaning initiatives from GOGLA, from Clean in India for setting up finance facilitation desks and connecting enterprises to the big institutions, the banks, the mainstream banks, to at least start promoting understanding and open up that access. However, we have still not quite fully solved the aggregation problem. So that still remains a big issue and a barrier to flow of financing. Individually within businesses, so for example, in SIMPA, we were able to mobilize financing from commercial banks because the whole model was that, okay, you commit a facility and then we'll basically on a borrowing basis expand the pool of assets, and then you'll have a portfolio on your balance sheet, but it'll be managed by us. That was a very simple arrangement with the bank. But I don't know whether there are other businesses or practitioners in India who can offer similar sort of models. But certainly there is appetite amongst investors or lenders to start looking at financing to the sector if we can provide them that aggregation. And the final thing is then data. That, okay, I think bilaterally the companies can provide it, but here again, GOGLA and other organizations in the sector have done tremendous work in collecting that data, exposing the quality of portfolios, standardizing the metrics that the banks and lenders need to look at, to actually evaluate that credit risk. So I would say that we are 30-40% of the way there, but of course, financing will not flow at scale unless we get 100% of the way there. So we just have to keep focused on the problem and think systematically about how do we knock down these barriers.
So I'm just kind of forcing you to get more nuanced answer. Okay. One is that, see, there are a lot of stakeholders working on enabling finance and building the ecosystem, but just say that institutions like GOGLA or ISA, I will get back to Alex later, but if these institutions have to play a role, and they are going to play a role in both the sides, enabling finance through aggregation through different mechanism, or building these blocks of data and aggregation platform that could enable those finance, right? So if you have a wish list and say that, okay, these are the two things that they can take it up, because as an industry association, they are championing, they're looking for what are the major critical lever for them that they can focus. Both ISA and GOGLA are looking for that levers that, okay, if we focus this, we can change the sector's landscape. So from your experience, both on the data and aggregation platform side, as well as the financing side, if we have to do one intervention in each, what could that be? And whether this is something that institutions like GOGLA, ISA, or respective governments in that, can take it up.
Okay, I think we spoke about this earlier. So one big intervention that is required at this point in time is to help institutions set aside a pot of money for DRE. And the way they could do that is by including DRE in climate finance. That clearly is a big gap. But I would also come back to the basic question about accessing finance. Let me just do a spot check here and ask how many of you have heard of the SMILE scheme? Have any of you heard of SMILE? You have.
Obviously,
But, yeah.
you are the concern.
Okay, well, look, that proves the point. The SMILE scheme, let me just read it out for you, is SIDBI Make in India Loan for Enterprises.
Yeah.
This is exactly a scheme meant for this purpose, but none of us are aware of it. And that proves the point that we just don't have enough information and that we don't have those contacts. We are not accessing the right types of facilities which are already set up. And this is not the only one, by the way. I made a note before coming here. I think we all would have heard of Mudra scheme. So that's available for SMEs as well. And it's sort of a revolver facility. So that pot of money is always there for new enterprises to access. Then you have regular MSME schemes, which are a plenty, and all of us qualify as MSME. So we should be engaging in a discussion with our respective banks. Then you have Stand Up India scheme, which is targeted especially at women entrepreneurs. So that's another opportunity. IREDA, Indian Renewable Energy Development Agency, has recently launched a renewable energy manufacturing finance scheme, which they are mostly using for EVs, because they say that they haven't received any proposals for other manufacturing, but the scheme is available for other manufacturing. So there are facilities available. There is capital available for DRE sector as a whole, but we just haven't created that access.
So Piyush, if I can simplify this, and I think I can convert into an action item that as industry bodies we can think of taking up, is making information available about the existing schemes and the pot of capital that are available to you. And unfortunately, the people who design those facilities are not in position to kind of run these massive campaigns. So somebody else has to do so that there is a matchmaking that happens. So I think it's a very good point. And that I'll jump to my next speaker.
I think just to be clear, we've discussed two interventions since you asked me a pointed question. The first is access to information and access to institutions. Mm-hmm. And the second is at an industry level, increase the pot of capital available to the sector by classifying this as climate finance.
Okay, I thought that the first one that you said was about having a separate kitty for climate finance available to that, but yes, I think it's a link both. So a platform that gives them access and kind of to a dedicated pool of capital, which is meant for this sector. The idea is dedicated pool of capital, which should be large enough to cater the need. And second, we should create awareness about these facilities so that the enterprises can avail, right? So thank you, Piyush. I think I'll move to my next speaker who has been waiting. So Alex, sorry for keeping you in the waiting for this, but I wanted you to come back, with some of the remarks that you have heard on the panel. I think, Alex has been, with the World Bank, and now he's supporting ISA, and in both the institutions have a big mandate to support DRE, right? So Alex, the question that I want you to kind of throw some light on is, ISA has a big mandate supporting 150 plus countries across the global arena to promote solar energy. And by that mandate, you also have access to a lot of understanding from different kind of solution, different kind of geography, different kind of intervention. Now, bringing all these perspective to India and saying that, okay, if we have to focus on our global learnings of ISA and see how India can be made a solar manufacturing hub. First, is there any remark that you're saying that, okay, India is right on the track and we are automatically going to be that manufacturing hub? But second, I want to, kind of also pull your thoughts on whether do you see a very strategic advantage India has as a, global manufacturing hub? That's the one question. And second, I want you to kind of talk about the public-private sector collaboration and how ISA is enabling this to kind of create more demand, more manufacturing capacity for the dairy products. Okay, so.
Yeah, so firstly, thank you. It hasn't been a problem waiting at all. I've been educated by these lovely co-panelists, so thank you for that. I think I want to start with kind of the aspect of strategic advantage. So, if you read the, works on, say, bottom of pyramid, I think, you have customers who are on one hand, very price sensitive, but also extremely demanding. You need equipment that, needs to go in high temperatures in remote locations without maintenance. It needs to be durable. It needs to last. So I think India has a strategic advantage in that products that are built for India are potentially going to be more suitable for similar climate and use cases in other developing countries, and particularly in countries in Africa where the most remote areas in India are almost the norm in a lot of these countries that ISA is working with. And someone earlier mentioned Jagad. I think I would like to see some creative spirit. I think there's a lot of creativity among startups in India. Even, I was something like lithium ion. I mean, lithium ion batteries are very high energy density. So they're very suitable for electric vehicles. But for stationary applications, like we're talking about today, maybe you can use sodium sulfur, or maybe you can use sodium ion, or maybe you can use vanadium, or maybe you can use some of these other chemistries. I come from the grid scale, so I'm not sure how much of these would necessarily translate into the smaller scale, but I'd love to see some creativity applied to using different battery chemistries aside from lithium ion. In terms of demand aggregation, I think that's very much what ISA has done. So we had an invitation for bids, and we got 272,000 solar water pumps. And we had 5 bidders. I think 4 of them were Indian. So, I mean, obviously India is a leader and has a strategic advantage, specifically in solar water pumps. The problem there is the project got stalled due to lack of financing. So I'd love to see, again, more creative solutions, whether it's distributed financing, which is what I think Shakti Pumps is doing, or, working with, say, Exim Bank of India, working with, different, the financial schemes that Piyush just mentioned. I do also want to differentiate between, if there's an economic use case. So let's say in Ethiopia, they're discontinuing diesel subsidies. And so you have diesel pumps. And now that the price of diesel's being rationalized, there's an economic case to switch to solar pumps. So that's a financing question. How do we get financing for Indian manufacturers to export to Ethiopia, where there's issues with currency convertibility and there's issues with stability of the government? And so you need to be creative in terms of how you structure it and you have a joint venture. And again, Indian companies might have an advantage because there's potentially greater risk appetite. A Western company is less amenable to sending their staff to Ethiopia than an Indian company might be. So I think there's a huge advantage there in a country like Ethiopia. The second case is where I would say it's non-economic and it's more subsidy driven. And there, I think that's a bit more challenging where you need some sort of Rockefeller Foundation type organization. But to me, I think there's a lot of opportunity just if you look at the, let's say, the economic use cases. And then the final comment I want to make is on this quality. And I've heard a lot about quality and standards. And I think it's very important to kind of avoid, what I call the L1 disease. So when I worked for a utility and we were procuring transformers, these are large utility scale transformers, and we actually basically just said, any transformer from China, we're going to add 50% of the cost, because we didn't have the nuance to differentiate between which of the manufacturers had high quality and which of the manufacturers didn't. So I think there's a real opportunity if there's standards like from GOGLA or like from MNRE to say, here's all Indian equipment meets this standard, and it might be a pain in terms of certification. But once you've met that certification, potentially that standard can then be respected, because this is a huge issue in Africa where people are complaining about counterfeit products, and they're complaining about low quality products. They're complaining about duplicate products. So if India can be seen as a secure, reliable, high quality supplier, that could be another strategic advantage.
Thank you, Alex. I think that was very helpful. And I think I have some solutions emerging, I think, which GOGLA can think of taking it up, because it's very obvious that the next step that is there. But before I jump to kind of next poll question, I have Tushar in the room, Tushar Devidyal. So Tushar, I think I just one question that I wanted to kind of get from you, and that's because we discussed about manufacturing of appliances, right? And you have been kind of into manufacturing of appliances business, and you have kind of pretty good portfolio. One, I want to hear your normal take on, can we become the major manufacturing hub for DRE powered appliances? That's the first question. What is your take on that? Second, again, I had asked all my panelists to talk about challenges and opportunity. I think opportunities, we can kind of guess what we're talking about. Ankit showed the number, and you already have spoken about that. So one, which challenges are stopping you from kind of becoming the company that you want to build for the world? And second, what is stopping you, or what can we do to enable more export from Devidyal Solar to the other countries? Other countries includes Africa, whatever. So, just your thoughts on this, because I missed the appliances part slightly. So I thought he's in the room. So
Santosh, thanks for surprising me. It's a good thing I was taking notes and listening to the panel. Okay, so look, I think I agree with most of what the panelists said, and they've very well summarized my views as well as a practitioner. For those who don't know me, my name is Tushar Devidyal. I'm the founder and CEO of DD Solar. We make solar DC refrigerators. We primarily sell them in India, but more recently we've been selling them to various countries in East Africa. Now, we have been, making historically in China. Like Sailesh said, some of, I think Praveen said as well, the freight rate that went up 5x, 10x times during COVID was really the trigger. I mean, we've always been thinking about Make in India, but then that trigger, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. We had to really look at it. Then again, when we went deeper dive, we realized again what Mukul was saying, that it's largely assembly. All the components are still coming from China. So the DC compressors come in from there, some of the copper tubes and piping come in from there, some of the PCBs come in from there, etc. So again, assembly, and not necessarily at a favorable duty structure or a GST structure. So that remains a little bit of a challenge. When it comes to the finance thing, Piyush has been helping us, by the way, in his role at IFC for a long time. And Santosh, that we've got end user financing through an Avishkar Group company. Yep. Now, when it came to and largely with your help, thank you for that. So we've deployed hundreds of solar fridges in India with end user finance. What the NBFC really asks from us is, the conversation starts very basic. What is a solar fridge? What is it going to be used for? Why is it different than an AC fridge? So it's really investor education that it starts with. And then what kind of guarantee? Oh, you're a really small company. This is a new technology. What do we do next? So then luckily we had, program partners who put in a pot of money as a first loss default guarantee. That was critical, because if you don't assure the financiers, one, that your product will last the tenure of their loan, right? You have a service network, you have a warranty network that will, again, outlast their EMI payments. And then you don't have a cash collateral, because our balance sheets are, for all practical purposes, worthless, right? They're like pieces of paper in our DRE sector. So you need, seriously, I mean, you need that first loss default guarantee. So I think that's critical. And you have to give your financiers comfort. And then, maybe I'll address something that Nima also said, which is a big challenge for us. She said that, and she's a consumer, she's our customer, she would be our B2B, go-to client. That's like Dharma Life is our wish list. What do they need? They need certifications. But what Dharma Life needs in India is different than what my customer needs in Tanzania. I may need to adhere to a BIS standard here. I need to adhere to a IEC standard in Tanzania. And I need to do some sort of global leap or CLASP certification for the rest of the world. This is just really too expensive. So, there's a number of challenges, and I thank you for giving me this opportunity. We are still going to go ahead. We are still positive with Make in India. And until this ecosystem kind of issues are not addressed, or the demand side is not adequately addressed, I think it's going to remain, quite a bit of a challenge.
Thank you, Tushar. I think this is very helpful. The kind of insight that I got from the panel. So I will have one last questions from each of the panel, but before that we'll have the poll, and then we'll kind of go to the Q&A. So
yeah, this is the last poll for today. What is the most critical support do you think that is required to scale up the manufacturing in DRE products in India?
It's a multiple choice, or is one choice we can choose one?
It's one choice, madam, yeah. What is the most critical support? Yeah. So demand stimulation initiatives, because we have seen that there are initiatives, but they're not fructifying into the demand that we expect from them to cater. Probably demands, low cost financing, production incentives. We have talked about it, that PLI is there for large scale DRE, large scale manufacturing, but not for DRE so far. And probably government support in terms of tax, land, electricity, other subsidies that, like, we know that there's a tax component which is getting impacted, impacting the manufacturing from that perspective. So what do you think is the most critical? What do you think is one thing that needs to be solved on an urgent basis, or most critical that needs to be solved? Everything is linked, but we just thought to understand the sentiments that people have in terms of the most critical thing according to them right now, which might have an impact.
Is it something like government support? Oh, suddenly government support went up. I was just about to say something.
You just endorsed it.
Very few people are voting, but I think because I think in this room there's a challenge of internet connectivity is not working. But these questions are also a good indicator, and I can just probably Praveer, what we can do that we can run this on our Sankalp platform. Yeah. We reach out to 60,000 people.
Yeah,
and we can get you a far more bigger data point to see what is there. So Ankit, make sure that it goes into our social media channels and Sankalp platform, where we reach out to more than 60,000 stakeholders, so we can see what exactly is. And we can also just use hashtag GOGLA and Make in India and see what happens. Because I'm really curious to see that where people see the pain point, although I'm getting a picture of that pretty much indoors. So Ankit, if you allow me, I can go to my panel. One question from each of you, just one line before we conclude. And I have some remarks which I would summarize things which might be slightly more, colored summary of what you have said. I'll put my own interpretation. But starting from Mukulji. Mukulji, what is one thing? You saw the picture, right? So this is what is one thing that we should do that would enable you to scale up, your manufacturing dreams?
Low-cost finance.
Low-cost finance or affordable finance, okay. And when you say low-cost finance, can I ask a question that whether you are asking about a working capital, long-term financing, trade finance, what it is?
Long-term working capital.
You want a working capital facility where you can draw whenever you require that, right? So access to working capital, which is affordable, right?
At a lower finance.
Okay. Piyush, I think question is same. I just want to see your perspective. What is one thing that you want to kind of push everyone saying that solve this problem on a little scale? What could be that for India? I'm specifically asking for India.
Question. But I would sort of repeat what Alex mentioned, that I think on one hand, there is a need to observe international level quality, but let's not also fall into the trap of, as you described, Elvin issue. Yeah, persevere and focus on all those certifications. There's one more, by the way, Tushar, SONCAP in Nigeria. Add that to your list. So, so the transaction cost of international trade are high, but if we have aspirations to play internationally, then I think we have to persevere and go through all those quality certifications.
Thank
So
you.
it's oftentimes not the quality issue per se, it's actually the perception of quality internationally.
Basically, you want to give a surety rather than say quality. It's a surety of the quality. We are not able to get that. Alex, I think a slightly different question I want from you is that ISA has been doing a number of things in this space, right? And I know I've been involved in some of the initiatives. So from ISA point of view, the way you are looking to kind of create the new capacity for solar globally, do you think there is a dedicated focus that you need to have on India? And if there are any, what are the things that you are doing at an ISA level or plan at ISA level to promote manufacturing in India? There are a number of things happening for promoting solar, but specifically on manufacturing in India.
I mean, I'm going to have to dodge this question a little bit because, I mean, we are the International Solar Alliance.
Yeah.
So, we have to respect the needs of all our members. But, as I said, when we did this pump tender, 4 of the 5 manufacturers were Indian. Last week, when we had our Africa Regional Committee meeting, we had lots of speakers coming from India and trying to build business connections in India. So I think, as I said, because of the unique advantages India has in terms of geographic proximity, relative to China, in terms of having that right mindset, having the right types of products, understanding the climate needs, et cetera, I think India is well positioned to meet the needs of the African continent when it comes to designing products that are suitable for the consumers there.
So I'll rephrase the question next time. I'll say how and what your focus is on diversifying the manufacturing base of the solar solution globally, because right now we know it's concentrated and it is going through all these things. But yeah, I think I like what you just said, that the focus is that how we diversify the manufacturing base that we can meet our solar aspirations. We cannot be just, focused on one geography and in this kind of changing world. So thank you, Alex. Nima, I think same question. One thing that you want from the ecosystem or from the larger perspective to be sold to make your customers avail all the kind of DRE solutions that are emerging?
A quality product and financing, the 2 things.
Sir, your input and then I'll operate up.
So if it is around developing DRE manufacturing in India, I would go for government support. Overall, larger support from government will really stir the growth very fast. Individually as Delight, if you ask me, I would say I would need low-cost financing for a long term. So that's
okay. So you covered all the things. You did not say one. You covered all of the things. So I think with this, I'll open it up for the any audience question, and then I'll summarize what is there, and then I'll hand it over to who I need to hand it over to. Patrick. Yeah. So any questions to the panel? Any questions on the report, you can surely write to Ankit and he can provide you the inputs if needed. But any question that you have for the panel, or is it all clear? And then I can summarize what it is. So let me summarize this thing, because go ahead. Okay, so if I have to summarize, because I'm just trying to kind of convene all the thought together and see what has emerged. So I think one line summary: India need to ramp up the manufacturing of solar from here to meet the demand of the global solar needs. We cannot be focused on one geography. So that's the larger picture. In order to do that, there are three challenges emerging. One is that the economics of the solar sector need to be amenable for scale. And I'm not talking about financing economics of solar, whether it is economics being hampered by the taxation because of the distribution, because of the poor perception of thing, and people are asking about. So economics need to be made more amenable for scale. Third, quality is critical for scaling up solar, both from a consumer point of view as well as from the other stakeholder point of view. Because if they don't understand the quality, finance is difficult. If they don't understand quality, distribution terms and conditions are difficult. If the finance, so quality is a challenge. Finance is kind of a challenge on a multiple way. One is that people are not aware of what are the financing innovations, solutions, and opportunities are there. And second, if they are there, they don't know how to avail it. And third, the kind of challenge we're talking about, we have inadequate finance available right now. So we need to make the pot bigger. That's the financing piece. Then there is an ecosystem challenge that we're talking about, like all the ecosystem innovations about data, regulations, the policy being enabled, the government being the aggregator, etc. That need to be there. So these are the 4 or 5 major things that emerged out. Couple of things that came out which could be a big takeaway for us to kind of take it forward. One is that ISA and GOGLA, GOGLA represents the industry body, ISA has the mandate to scale it up. I think if we can come up with one quality standard that becomes the global benchmark, we can just reduce the cost. It's so obvious, right? So that's something that we can dream of. So we can work with the political, and you need ISA or you need the local government to come and saying that we are agreeing to having one global standard of certification. If that is availed, it's something like IEEE, the one done by the electronics industry, right? So that could be a major boost. Second is that the ecosystem support, convening and sharing knowledge. I think many of the financing innovations that have happened in one part of the country is not known to another. So microfinance institutions have done a brilliant job in India, but we have not been able to convince similar financial institution that could do the same kind of product offering in Africa. Vice versa, we have not been able to replicate the pay-as-you-go model here. So there is a need for that. And last part, I think, is also about kind of looking at engaging better with the government so that we highlight that some of the sectors are in sync with their overall development need. So how to have policy that kind of be aligned, be the basic custom duty, be the GST, and because we have done that earlier in many sectors, we have spoken about that and that has been heard. So that's the thing. So with this, I think I would thank my panel, audience, and GOGLA and all the colleagues here for providing me this opportunity to kind of moderate the session. But thank you very much for sharing the insight. I think one of the key things that we missed here is to have a government representation here, but at least I can promise that we can consolidate and we can reflect it on and share with the government whenever the opportunity is there in our next meeting. So we can surely take this up to the government and we can start pollinating these ideas through normal channels. With that, thank you very much. And Piyush, you have a point, so go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to make all of you aware that obviously we actually operate an aggregated procurement platform where the idea is to consolidate equipment requirements from small projects, currently mostly in Africa, and then present scale orders to OEMs and suppliers like yourselves, including suppliers in India. So here's an invitation from me for all of you who want to sort of explore market in Africa to come join the platform, because that way we could at least solve the access problem. You can contact me for more details.
Thank you, Piyush. And thank you very much for being a patient listener and kind of, I think, whatever we have done so far in the report or this panel discussion, I think it's all going to continue in different form. So feel free to reach out to us. I did not kind of give a context of what Intellecap does, but reach out to us. We might help you in many things that we are talking about, including financing and some of the kind of stuff you do. So thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want everyone to stay just for 2 minutes. And I request Tushar, a GOGLA member, to come forward and give everyone a memento of appreciation from our side.
You just find out who wrote the script for this.
Yeah,
You start with my panels.
Yeah.
Are you going to reach out to Nema for a contract to distribute?
We've been talking this.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the panel. I'd now like to invite Patrick from GOGLA to give concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, I think, for what has been a really interesting discussion. My name is Patrick Tonwe. I head GOGLA's policy and regional strategy work. And I think for us, this is a really exciting conclusion for a piece of work that we have been pursuing for, I think, the last 7-8 months. I think just to go back to where Kun started and the context, GOGLA is an industry association. We work on and for behalf of our members who are private sector. And I think the COVID period has taught us many things as an industry and also on behalf of our members. One, I think it's very clear we need more sustainability and reliability across the supply chain. The disruptions that we've seen in terms of the long lead times, in terms of shortage of supplies, and very many things means we need to expand and really get more sources of manufacturing for products in our sector. And I think as we took this piece of work, we remain convinced that India probably has a lot of those elements to be able to do that, and driven by many of you, the capacity, the capability, the innovation and the entrepreneurship, and the fact that products are already coming from India. But I think as we look at the recommendations and what's coming out of here, I think there are 3 unavoidable facts that I think I want to also present to everybody because it informs what we take from here. One, which I think Mukul mentioned, is the consumer. For us as the DRE sector or the off-grid sector, our primary customers, the ones that we want to make sure are not left behind, live in the poorest conditions, the hardest to reach places, and their ability to pay is extremely low. So whatever we do, if we don't also think about doing it in as efficient a way as possible to keep that price affordable, we will make products that we cannot sell. So whatever we do has to really look at that, keeping the price as affordable as possible. The second one, which I think has been touched by you, but also we see in many markets, and it's something that led to the putting in place of the Lighting Global Standards and also GOGLA's own consumer protection standards, is the issue that nobody wants bad products to our consumers. So we have to also think about not just the lowest cost price possible, but really good, reliable products. And then the last one that I think really speaks to what we need and the conscious thing, particularly as we're having this conversation in India, is when you leave India and you go to Africa, you are going to run into international competition. We cannot wish away the products that come from everywhere else. So we need products that are good price, good quality, and can compete. And the recommendations that come here that we hope can be picked up in India have to create manufacturers who are able to go out and compete and win every time. And I think anything that we take from here if we're able to come up with recommendations that enable you, will help you become the most competitive and manufacturers and OEMs out there, and I think we'll be successful that way. We look forward to taking this piece of work. GOGLA remains committed here, and we do want to remind you we have a conference coming up in Kigali in October. It's about 6 weeks away, where we are going to convene the whole global community to talk about the markets, talk about access to finance, to talk about standards, to talk about the work that the African governments are doing to reach their own energy access goals, the work that everybody else is doing on productive use, and we ask you to join us there if possible. Thank you so much, and we really ask you to continue working and supporting Praveen and Brenda and the work that we're doing here in India, and we remain committed to also doing what we can to be your voice here in India as well as in the other global markets, to everybody, to governments, the rest of the industry, to development partners, financiers, investors in this journey. Thank you very much. And as we conclude, I want to invite the chair of our India working group, Ravi Piti, to do our Thanksgiving remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. So on behalf of GOGLA India, I would like to mention a few thanks. First, to all those who attended this event today in this room as well as online, to our esteemed guests and panelists, to all GOGLA members, partner organizations, Intellecap, all DRE sector stakeholders. So thank you for being a part of this today. And before I conclude, a special mention to Brenda for doing such a great job of putting this event together. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Just one, there's an online question that where we can access the report. So it's already on the GOGLA website. All of you can access the report. And there's a tea coffee that's outside. So before heading out, let's do some networking and have some tea and coffee together. Thank you so much. So yeah, to all the online participants, we are closing the event. Thank you so much for joining us online, and we look forward to meeting you at some point in time.